The Brewtallyspeaking podcast is proudly sponsored by Starving Artist Brewing. Starving Artist Brewing may be a small speck on Michigan's beer map, but they say big things come in small packages. A brewery who really puts their money where their mouth is, supporting underground artists far and wide. Making delicious beers with the simple belief that you should judge beer, not people. Brewtallyspeaking podcast is proudly sponsored by rockabilia.com. For over 30 years, Rockabilia has been the go-to destination for all things band merch. With over 500,000 items in their online store and collaborations with today's hottest bands, you're sure to find something you love. Use our code BREW10 at checkout and take 10% off your total order. So go pick up your favorite new piece of merch now over at rockabilia.com. And now, on to the show.
Say you have to have a lot of passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Brewtallyspeaking podcast. I am your host, John, and this episode's guest is the returning Brandan Schieppati of Bleeding Through. This was a fun chat. We talk about a lot of different things, kind of covering initially fitness and our journey collectively, but I will say, obviously, Brandan owning a gym, Rise Above Fitness. Obviously, he knows more and has been more dedicated to that journey, more so than I would say myself. You know what's interesting? A lot of times I used to do the intro and outros all together, and I would just kind of cram like 2 or 3, so I'd be like far ahead. And it's funny as I've kind of been letting more of life happen after doing the podcast and then waiting to do the intro and outros and so forth. Some would say it's till the very last minute. I mean, it's literally 11 a.m. right now on a Sunday, and as soon as I'm done with this, I'm going to post this, so maybe cutting it to the wire, but ultimately, I do enjoy kind of having something happen during the week between episodes of me putting it out and kind of putting that into these intro and outros. And it's interesting to see how sometimes things just naturally align as a result. And so in this chat, Brandan and I talk about sort of the state of current, recordings in the scene and how it's kind of impossible to have a bad sounding record or, song at this point. It's almost, back in the day, I think Brandan said it used to be, how do you have a good sounding song? Now it's, how do you have a bad sounding song or record? And we were talking about the use of like backing tracks and stuff like that in the live setting and just different facets of things during our conversation. And earlier this week, my wife and I and some friends went to go see Snoop Dogg and Wiz Khalifa. And what was interesting is, having been to a lot of rap shows, a lot of the artists, like actually a few weeks before this, my wife and I went to go see NF at the same venue. And I'm not going to say I'm the biggest NF fan. Like, I know through a lot of people and stuff like that, like culturally, he's pretty big, kind of an independent rapper, made a name for himself. Now, essentially he's selling out arenas by himself. So you can't really knock that. But it was interesting to go to the show and just kind of see what it was. And there's, I could go on a whole different tangent about that show and something I kind of took away from it personally, where I was just like, ugh. But one of the things that I was kind of bummed to see is that he himself, NF, was using a lot of tracks. Like, basically, he was rapping over his own tracks. And there were times where you could tell he couldn't quite keep up with himself. And it was a little bit of a bum out. It's like, ugh, like, whatever. But that is kind of the state of rap now. Like, gone are the days where people actually rap over the instrumental of their song versus just essentially doing, like, a live karaoke. And it is what it is. I guess if the fans don't care, then I shouldn't give a shit either, but I do. And what was cool about seeing Snoop and Wiz is that basically they kind of were a throwback to how rap shows used to be, which is, here's the instrumental, and I rap over these instrumentals. Maybe there's the backing track of like the hook, like on some songs like Nate Dogg, who has long since been passed away, was on the track. Sometimes I think during the encore, they do that Wiz Khalifa, Charlie Puth song that was in the Fast and Furious movie. And they showcased like it was like a memoriam for all these passed away rappers and so forth. And it just was a thing where, like, other than that, where, like, obviously Charlie Puth is not going to go on that tour just to do that one song. Short of Macklemore bringing out Eric McNally of Foxy Shazam to do Downtown, I don't really know of many people who bring out the guest vocalist or the person who does the hook, typically. But it was just really cool to kind of see that there was like the musicianship. They gave a fuck basically about their craft to actually do it live. And especially, like I said, in a day and an era where that's not as common as you would think, it was really refreshing to see and to think back to how, like, literally Brandan and I talk about that. Was interesting. The other thing too was sort of something, that I'm kind of pulling from Josta actually, but I've talked about quite a bit on this, is, this merging of two eras of bands or music. A lot of times you'll see some bands, and I've been saying, like, Knocked Loose is really good at this, where they'll take out like a legacy band and they'll take out an up and coming band or a band that's like equally like hot. And it kind of pays forward where the roots of the genre came from, while also kind of giving a hand down to the underground and bringing it up with them. And, Josta talks about high tide raising all ships, and more to the point, the cosign, that like more bands need to cosign other bands to keep the scene strong. And I was thinking about that with this tour, that at times, like during Snoop set, it's like the older people in the crowd were definitely vibing with Snoop. And during Wiz, like, there were songs I knew, like I was kind of surprised to see him come out like straight out the gate with Black and Yellow, and I was like, you're coming out with your biggest hit? I was wrong, because the crowd definitely knew a lot more of the other material than I did. But it just kind of showcased this merging of two eras, which is interesting when you think that Snoop is still relevant and still possibly as big as he's ever been, which kind of made me think of something else Brandon and I talked about throughout this chat, which is, not compromising yourself and learning to adapt with the times and the things that are happening. You could be the old dinosaur who's like, oh, back in my day, this, that, or the other. Or you could just learn to find your way and navigate through it and essentially, still be a part of the conversation. And I think that was the interesting thing during Snoop set is, obviously starting off with the next episode, sorry, spoilers, I guess, if you're going to see the tour, with the next episode, which isn't even technically his song, it's obviously off of Chronic 2001, but it was interesting to see him traverse through that stuff from like Doggy Style, even like he played Snoop's Upside Your Head, which I believe, I might be wrong timeline-wise, was like off of his era of No Limit, which was fucking massive when he, as a West Coast rapper, went to a Southern label. But I was thinking throughout the whole thing, even when he did California Girls, the Katy Perry, his like verse on the Katy Perry song, that it's like this dude has traversed like 3 decades, has gone from gangster rap to pop to more mainstream hip-hop, for lack of a better term, and throughout it all, he never compromised who he was. Like, even listening to the vocals, lyrics, and all that stuff, you're never like, oh, Snoop sold out. And I even feel the same kind of about Wiz Khalifa. Like, it's interesting, like I said, I knew some of the earlier material versus like the newer stuff, but I actually think like the brand new stuff that he was doing, I think I kind of like more, because he's in an interesting, like, I'm not a kid anymore, I'm not young, I'm kind of older, I've been in the game for a while. And it was just really interesting to kind of see how both of these artists have really traversed their careers. And to me, have done it without compromising themselves in the process, which I think is really admirable. And I don't think it's something that we think about. I think there are a lot of us who maybe should think about that, how we are and what we do and how we can grow with our surroundings, but not compromise who we are in the process. I don't know. Something I was thinking about this week in preparation for doing these intros, outros. All that said, let's get into my conversation with Brandan Schieppati, and I will talk to you all on the other side of it.
Fucking difficult, man. They just are.
Yeah, but it's a It's funny. Like I was talking to my friend Andrew from Dance Gavin Dance Idola, who has become like a personal trainer and just fitness is like his life over the last 4 or 5 years. And like he's been someone I'll text and just be like, man, I'm down to like at the most I was down to 195, and I was like, fuck yeah, I made it under 200 pounds. Now it gets like 180 or 175. And then like yesterday I stepped on the scale and it was like 205, and I was like, motherfucker. Like, and I was just like upset. And then I just like because my wife and I had a goal to get to a certain weight by Upheaval Fest, which is in a couple of weeks. And so I just was like telling her, I was like, fuck it, let's go to the gym tomorrow. And she was like, okay. And I was like, all right. And I was like, I think the other thing I'm going to start doing is there's a gnarly hill to get up to the secondary stages at this festival that's like 5 minutes from my house. So I was like, I think as much as I hate being hot, I'm going to just go fucking do it like once or twice in the heat with like a dry fit hoodie or something, and just try to drop some LBs that way, like just the old tired and true method.
What I try to tell people too, like if they just like, it's all about movement in life, really. It's like, you know, a lot of people think there's so much to it to get started, and there really is, but like all in all, it just takes like moving, getting out there, being active, especially like when it gets a little bit warmer out. Like you could fucking just go on a walk for like an hour, you know what I mean? And it's just good for your fucking soul that you like did something, got out and like just moved your body, and then kind of go from there. Like kind of, you know, be like, okay, like I'm getting into like moving again, being active again. And now it's like working weights or whatever the fuck, you know what I mean? So it's like little baby steps. Like people, you know, we're in a society right now where people just want everything like fucking right now. And it's honestly like been like almost the demise of the fitness industry, is because there's so much misinformation out there from like trainers and people that are doing whatever the fuck. And like, they're just telling people you could have this and this amount of time. And it's just so unrealistic, because everybody, it's an individual case. Everybody has individual needs, injuries, starting points. Like, I mean, you have good genetics, bad genetics, you know, there's so much to it. And it's just it's so fucking like Hulkamania right now in the fucking fitness industry right now, where it's just like, it's motivating to a point, and then it's just going to turn to extreme frustration for a lot of people. That's what I think. Like a while ago, there was like that whole shreds thing, and like, you know, be like us. And it's just like, it was all just bullshit marketing and, you know, no substance. And I think that a lot of the fitness industry right now is becoming that way again. And so it's really trying to like get the right people in the forefront, and that can connect with different types of people, you know what I mean? And that's super big.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me that I've noticed, excuse me, and something that's kind of gravitated me toward any of the times that it's, you know, I mean, it's easy to kind of stay in shape and all that when you're in your early teens and late teens and so forth, when you essentially play sports 24/7 and have access to a gym and it doesn't cost you anything, and your metabolism's great. But it is kind of frustrating at times where like you'll see the progress of people and you're just like it's funny because Scotty, who I know that you know, that lives down here, it's interesting because like he and I are roughly the exact same size as far as like maybe not weight anymore, but height and all that. And it's a thing where, you know, I see his posts almost every day where it's like, I'm up at fucking 5 o'clock this morning to get my workout in. I'm doing these things. And it's a thing for me where sometimes I want to be like, I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And I realized a while ago that I was like, it's a fucking excuse. And it's like, I have the time, but I'd rather be doing something else. So I need to kind of either be fine with where I'm at and stop beating myself up about it, because I'm clearly not willing to do something about it, or I need to shit or get off the pot, basically.
Well, totally.
And
totally. And that's what I'm saying about like little goals. Like start with something like, okay, let's change something in our diet that we know that we shouldn't be doing right now. So just change like something little or a couple things, not like extreme, get on this meal plan like right now, because it's not realistic for a lot of people that aren't used to programming themselves on how to eat and proper nutrition. That's just like so moving from one extreme to the next, where I mean, my philosophy is like, cool, if you know you eat too much dairy or you eat too much bread, cool, bail those, eat more protein, just little adjustments, little tweaks, so your body gets used to like more of a cleaner eating, and then you could get on a schedule from there. You know, you don't have that time in the morning, but you know, you might have like 35-40 minutes at this time of like the day, and you can kind of get out there and do a little something, you know what I mean, until it becomes something to where your body craves it and you need it to kind of keep that motor running. And that's what helps like your mental state of mind, physical, like the harmony in your whole body, and then you'll eventually get that, you know what I mean. Like Scotty's a psychopath, you know what I mean. But I mean, you know, he's been at it for so long, and a lot of us have been at it for so long that we're just programmed that way, you know what I mean.
I think the thing about seeing someone like Scotty, or even someone like yourself, or, you know, I've even looked at some other people where it's like you see some of these people and it helps when you know that it's not an instantaneous thing.
Yes. And
that it's something that there are times where, you know, and I don't mean to like say this in such a negative way, but I think it's something I've noticed people talk about you, like where I see comments on occasion. And it speaks to the changing, but you need to change and figure out who you are now and what life you want, or what you want out of life currently. Because something I've seen a ton that people are surprised at is like, you know, now you drink and you didn't used to.
Yep.
And it's a thing to me where it's like, that's something not that I really ever had a problem with it, but like I severely cut back on drinking craft beer.
Totally.
And it's a thing where it's like, do I still love beer? Fuck yeah, I love beer. But it's a little bit better for my body to drink like I drink long drinks now. They're sugar-free, have like no carbs, no nothing, and then I'll do a shot of whiskey with it to have the more thing I'm looking for.
Let's get there.
But it's a thing where it's like I've noticed even by doing that, it's like I don't feel as bloated and shitty, and like hangovers are almost non-existent and things like that. But it's like it took me a while to kind of be like, I guess I'd just rather not drink beer and not feel bloated and shitty all the time.
Well, that's the thing. That's like the little differences. And like, even for me, like I don't really drink that much, but I even, you know, cut back on drinking a lot, even when I do socially. And when I mean cut back, it's like I'm cutting back on not much anyway, but still just that little bit that I noticed I was doing a little bit more like in social settings and stuff like that. That definitely played a role in my body. And being like 42 years old, man, that shit sticks. And really, at a certain point, it's like, you know, you drink those like craft beers, those things will, you drink a heavy craft IPA, man, you drink like 5 of those things, you're going to feel like fucking shit. And that shit's going to stick to you. But regardless, with alcohol consumption, the older you get, it really drags your metabolism through the mud. It could be like anything. So even those like seltzers, which are a better choice, what do you call them, mom drinks?
No, they're called long drinks. It's
mom drink. I thought you called them mom drinks, and I'm like,
no. I mean, they are kind of.
But you know, even with that kind of stuff, it's like it just plays such a role on your metabolism and your body. So like, I noticed that like, you know, it was dark and gloomy and rainy basically all year this year in California. So the outside activity stuff on the weekends just wasn't really there as much. And so what do? You just sit at home like, oh, I guess I'll have like a beer or like whatever. And then that became a little bit too much of a habit, and you just got to kind of break from it. And you'll notice you'll just feel so much better, sleep better, less stress, less anxiety, all that kind of shit.
Oh, I think that was the hard part for me, is when I was starting to look for new jobs, I stopped smoking weed. And it became this thing where I had problems sleeping to begin with, and like melatonin and all that shit doesn't really cut it. Like weed's like one of the only things that actually allows me to sleep uninterrupted and get good sleep. And was a thing where my drinking just fucking shot through the roof. And I was like, and I just kept thinking to myself, I was like, why is this okay? Why is it that I can be on the verge of like blacking out because like I can put it away and that's what it takes, and that's okay. But me deciding to smoke at like 9 p.m. and go to bed at 10 is frowned upon. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's vastly changing, and I think in the next few years,
I hope so.
It's definitely going to change a lot. I mean, in California, I know for California, there's a reason why people call it California sober, because it's like, you know, everybody smokes weed here, and it's like not frowned upon at all. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, there's different places, but hopefully that changes, because I truly do think that one of the most destructive things in the world is drinking. It's just like, you know, it's a slippery slope for a lot of people. Your tolerance builds up so much quicker than like anything else. And then all of a sudden you notice you have to drink like a fucking 12-pack to feel like buzzed. You know what I mean? And then that's a problem. And then your body's going to react to that problem as well. So yeah, man, it's just, like I said, like just cutting out those little things. That's just what's up there. It's just not extremes, but just cutting out things like little by little and seeing how your body feels, and kind of just like staying on that momentum of how your body feels.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of the interesting thing is just kind of getting realigned with my body and kind of even obviously like how when you kind of start, like, I hate saying like when I focus on like the weight thing, but it's for me because I started doing something I knew I could control while not really putting much effort into it, given the nature of my job, which was kind of working mall retail hours, which are vast and varied. And so I just started fasting and was like, I'm going to do like a 22-hour fast, eat for 2 hour window, see what it gets me. And notice that like just by doing that, paying more attention to eat, like when I notice my body's kind of saying like, I think I'm full, like just being done as opposed to keep eating to be clean, like clean your plate, eat all the food so you don't have extra. And it really kind of is interesting when you start, for me, breaking down a lot of the mental side of it, like wasting food, quote unquote, because it's like, well, it's not really enough for anything else. I'm just going to toss it. But it's like, I grew up poor. So it's like, you eat fucking everything.
Yeah, you eat what you got.
Yeah. And so it's weird to change your relationship with food and just change your relationship with a lot of things. But from the mental side of things, like just how much work goes into it from that perspective as well.
Yeah. And like fasting is like intermittent fasting and stuff like that's like really effective for some people. I mean, I've done it before and it was effective. Just, unfortunately for me, like part of like, I'm bipolar and stuff like that. So I have to keep myself out of fight or flight mode at all costs through the day. So if I like go to a point where I'm like in a fasting state and I'm like kind of fight or flight, then like my brain just doesn't really work properly. But I know it works for a lot of people. And it's also, if it does work for you, it's good because it's like practicing self-control and practicing like, discipline really. And like, if you do something like that, then you can take another step to add something else discipline wise.
Yep. That's where we're at today with going to the gym later. So as this is done, kind of something else I wanted to talk about, because it's been something you've been posting quite a bit about is, and I guess for some clarity, you are recording, at least as of what we've seen, some of This Is Love, This Is Murderous.
Yeah.
Is the goal to just kind of do like a reimagined EP kind of sorts? Or
basically, we're doing 3 songs off of it. And we're just going to do like an EP. We're going to release probably the first song, hopefully by like August, like mid-August, like before we go out to do those like 3 Midwest shows. I think we're going to re-release Love Lost and a Hail of Gunfire first. And then, I mean, I'll just let you know, we're doing Love Lost and a Hail of Gunfire on Wings of Lead and Number 7 with a Bullet. And sort of the thing with that was more like, okay, it's a 20-year anniversary. Re-recording things is a little bit easier. I just really wanted to kind of go back and revisit and kind of like put a different like spin on those songs. We're not rewriting the songs. It's not something that's going to be like, oh, they completely changed this part, or like, it's really stays pretty true, but we're just adding like little things here and there, just better production, better performance, all that kind of stuff to it. And just kind of like, we want to kind of share those songs with people in like where we are now with our energy and like everything now, which I actually think supersedes what we were 20 years ago. So it's like, I feel like it's time to kind of hear those songs, like, yeah, reimagined basically. It's a good way to put it. So I just think it's kind of a fun thing. And people have been like pretty cool about, we get the people like, oh, why would you fuck with that? And I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, like, you always look back at your old recordings and say, oh, we wish we could do this. But, people forget that record was done on a very cheap budget, like extremely cheap, even by today's standards, where bands don't even get paid anymore to do records. And it was done in basically a weekend, and you know what I mean? So it was like bang, 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 done. And it's like, now we actually have time to like sit and listen to it. And like, back then those records were just so fucking thrown, you know what I mean? And it made for like a cool, like raw feeling. And trust me, the new reimagined versions are just as raw, but they're fucking awesome so far. Sort of pumped.
I think the thing for me when I saw it, some people's reactions are going to be, oh, I can't wait to hear it. Some people's reactions are, fuck, why would you touch it? Like, leave it as it is. Of course. And my initial reaction was, I was like, ooh, is a sunset clause up? Are you able to do this so you can own your own stuff, or at least, and that's where my mind goes because of like more business side of things.
See, here's the thing. Trustkill owns the masters to all of the Trustkill releases. but those are masters of the recorded versions. You're always
Right.
allowed to re-record anything you want. That's the thing.
But-
it's still
but I thought
your
there's-
song, just the
yeah.
master of that song. The mastered version recording is owned by the label. They don't own the song. So any band can re-record that song and just release it anytime they want.
See, I guess I was under the assumption from listening to different people like Josta and so forth on his show, where there's even a re-record clause where you have 10, 15 years before you can.
We didn't have any of that. That was so
Okay.
like early days of Trustkill that they didn't. So, and this isn't like a, hey, like we're doing this because like fuck Trustkill, like whatever with Trustkill. Like we're cool. That's all buried. It's don't want to live in the past. We're not doing that as like sort of like an anti that. It's more just like, this is for us. You know what I mean? Like this is for us and this is for our fans and people that have been with us for a really long time. And I just think it's a really cool thing that we could put out there for people.
I think it'll be interesting to see, because to me, like when someone kind of reimagines something or it takes the time to redo, remix, remaster, however you want to, whatever they end up doing to something that's old, it's always interesting to see what new kind of happens, because I think something you had said about recording initially the album is that, you know, it was done in a weekend. So there's the immediacy that sometimes I feel like is lost in a lot of newer music because it's so to a grid and just like, I've been practicing this and we know it's going to be copy pasted, whatever.
Yeah.
And so sometimes I feel like records now lose some of that feeling.
I agree.
But I do feel like there is a little bit to be gained from maybe a production side where it's like when you have the time and you can go, ooh, it'd be really cool to maybe throw a harmony vocal behind this. Let's try it real quick. Actually, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of work on it.
And that's really what it is. It's just like, I feel like we're so much more talented as a band. Like, you know, Marta didn't record on that song. That was still our old keyboard player for that. And, you know, not talking trash, but it was very limited. Marta's much better, like musician and putting more stuff on it to make it more sort of like have her presence in there, put her voice on it for like harmonies and stuff like that. That's the stuff that we kind of see ourselves as more of a complete band. And, you know, 4 of us now sing all the time. And we just want to use all that stuff like in there now. Cause I mean, even before then, like Ryan, our bass player, didn't even like sing on that record. That was just me. And now, but live, we both do it. And so just kind of like have like that modern sound. And the thing is too, we're not really that band that like is like a polished band. Like even with our last like song Wartime, it's still fucking raw. I do like basically one vocal track. I'm not trying to pull a Brand of Sacrifice and have 19 vocal tracks and everything sound like a computer and all that fucking shit. Like we're a raw fucking band. Not taking away from that band, that's their way, but that is a complete opposite spectrum of how Bleeding Through records. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's not so like I said, it sounds like a robot. Like we don't sound robotic, and this is still going to sound very raw, and that's how we always kind of record. I don't sit there all day with like one song where I'm screaming or I'm like, oh, my voice kind of cracked there. Let's replace it. And no, man, I fucking record how I sound. And whatever comes out. And it's just kind of the way I've always been, you know? And I feel like that we're all like kind of the same way with that. I kind of feel like once you like are too nitpicky with like some of your material, it kind of takes the fucking like realness out of it, you know?
Yeah.
And that's sort of like my gripe with a lot of like newer bands now. It's just, fuck, man. Like having a Motley Crue fucking like recording used to be like unheard of. And now it's just like, dude, if you have a bad recording, it's like, how do you have a bad recording? You know what I mean? It used to be like, how do you have a good recording? And now it's like, how could you even have a bad recording now? You know?
I still think, you know, having seen, well, I guess now I didn't see the final tour, just like I didn't see Kiss's second final farewell tour either. Yeah. But having saw Motley Crue since they came back and then saw we were the first date of the farewell tour here in GR that had all the technical issues. And it still is one of those things, like when you're watching it, you can clearly tell they're playing hella tracks. But the thing that always amazed me is I'm like, how the fuck do you have all these backing vocal tracks for the high harmonies and all that? But you let Vince go out there and sound like he does. Like, what the fuck? Out of all the things you could have put to track, you let him flounder and look like an asshole.
Yeah. I mean, dude, just the tracks alone. I mean, I know a lot of bands play to tracks, and that's fine. And like, I don't want to like attack new stuff and sound like that old guy sitting on a porch going, "Oh, don't cheat." And like we cheat, everybody cheats, but but there's certain levels of how bands record and present themselves. We don't play to tracks. We've done it like for when we did Declaration and some of Level Kill All, we did like some tracks, and now we just kind of decided like, nah, it's not really us. We like to just do it ourselves. And if I don't know, I see so many bands that do play to tracks where it's like, dude, it just doesn't like it should sound better, but it actually makes the band sound worse, because it's like you're listening to the track, but you're trying to focus on the band, and they're sucking, but the track sounds great. You know what I mean? Anybody can cover up a bunch of turds with some fucking 808 drops and bass drops and shit like that. Like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. I do sound like the old guy. Fucking get off my lawn.
Well, that's all right. My wife and I.
I'm not a hater. I actually like everything. Like, even if you ask me, like, what's a band that you don't like right now? I'd be like, I don't know. I don't really have a band I don't like. I have a lot of bands I do like. And I respect all the processes of every band. It's like, naturally, things are going to like, the process of like writing songs and writing music and all that stuff is going to change. It's technology. You know what I mean? So you're either going to adapt or you're going to fucking die.
Yeah, I think like my wife and I are going to go see Sleep Token in a month or so. I don't know.
How about listening to the tracks? They're all fucking tracks.
I was telling her, I was like,
I fucking love that band. I can't wait to see that band because I really, really want to see them do it live. It's kind of like the first time I saw Lorna Shore. I didn't have doubts, but I wanted to see how they did it. And they just fucking nailed it. And it was awesome. So if you could be that like impressive and with all those tracks and work it all in, fucking dope. Then do it.
I feel like my biggest gripe for Sleep Token for me personally is I still feel like it's just a bunch of parts. It's not full songs to me. Like, I feel like it's like, okay, like here's this slow part, and then it just kind of goes away. And then here comes the heavy part, and then that goes away. And then here comes like back to what it was. And I'm like, that's not a full song. Like anyone can just stop and then come in with something else and then stop that and then go back to the next thing. I know easier said than done, but when I hear that, like to me, that's just lazy songwriting, because I'm like, you couldn't find a way to bridge the two together. Like, look at what Knock Loose did on their second single that they just dropped, where it's like they have the breakdown and then the melody's coming over it that brings you into that next part. Like, there are ways to do it, but to just completely drop everything out and then come back in, it's like, that's fucking lazy.
Yeah,
and to me, that's why I'm not really a fan.
I'm a structure snob. And like, you know, that's part of like, you know, when I listen to like old Bleeding Through stuff, it's a lot of stop and stuff, but that was just like young writing and this and that. I don't know, like, say like the new Avenged Sevenfold, which I think is like the best record in the last fucking decade. People can say what they want to say. There's a lot of that, but it's kind of like a musical journey. And I guess where they're coming, like, I don't know, I can't speak on them, but like, I know them personally. They're really big fans of like Dream Theater and a lot of proggish stuff. And so it makes sense for them as like songwriters to kind of have like a musical thing. So in the sense of like Sleep Token, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of stuff where I feel like they could, I don't know, flow more, but man, their vibe and shit, like, I just think it kind of works. You know what I mean? I think sometimes it works, you know?
And I think live, it'll be interesting to see if it comes across more like, because something that I think was really instrumental for me in understanding that some things were never for the record. It was always thinking about a live experience, was when I went and saw Kanye on the Life of Pablo tour. Yeah. And that record, when I heard it, I was like, this just feels disjointed and it's weird. And I don't understand. Like, it just didn't make sense to me. And then I saw it live and he played a lot of the stuff live. And I go, oh, this part was never meant to be, oh, I'm listening to the record. This was always meant you're in an arena full of people and we're all fucking getting down to this part. Yeah. It's a fucking vibe. Like, now I get it. So sometimes I'm still holding I'm reserving my judgment on Sleep Token until after I've seen them live and go, okay, I may not really like what it is on record, but maybe live, I'll really enjoy it.
They'll be fantastic. And a lot of stuff does translate live better than on records and vice versa. So yeah, you might be happy. I can't wait to see them someday. I mean, I'm hoping that I get to see them soon. They're like one of my newer favorite bands, kind of like everybody else.
Yeah, it's been fun to, like, I think since the last time I talked to you, like, I've kind of fallen in love with with music and like listening to music and
Yeah.
listening to new bands and so forth. And you know, it's funny when you had sent me Salt Wound, I was like, I feel like I've heard that name somewhere.
Yeah.
And was a thing like I was listening to it while I was like stuck in like 5 o'clock traffic on a Friday trying to get to the highway. And I was like, I can't listen to this right now because I'm about to like fucking ram my car into the person in front of me.
Yeah. There's so much good new bands out though that are just crushing it. It's a rad time for, especially for like heavy music. I love the diversity of things. Like I think it needs to become a little bit more diverse. I would like to kind of go back. I think we might have spoke about this last time, how like a lot of different types of bands used to tour with each other back in the day, like different types of bands. Now it's I feel like it's kind of trending in that area a little bit more, which would be rad, because like when I go to a show, I want to see like some different types of music. You know what I mean? Like that type of stuff. Like, I don't know, even like seeing like Periphery and Under Oath together, like it was different enough to where it was like cool, like different vibes. Like this is the vibe of this band, this is the vibe of this band. It wasn't like this band is playing with that, you know, senior this band. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's cool to see.
Yeah, I think I got to have the similar experience years ago to go see Andrew when Dan Scavin had taken out Periphery and Don Broco.
Yeah.
And like you want to talk about bands, 3 bands that couldn't be further apart from one another. Like it's those 3, but I think the thing that ties them all together is that they're not really any one thing. They kind of play around in a lot of different genres. So therefore that's the continuity between all 3 is just their willingness to go in whatever sonic territory they think fits the song.
I think that's fucking awesome. I mean, like we were kind of the benefit of doing a lot of different types of tours, and we always tried to do different tours. Like, you know, we toured like AFI and The Explosion and AFI and Hot Water Music, and we had to play them before Hot Water Music. And I remember every day, that's like one of my favorite bands of all time. And every day they're like, dude, why do we have to play after you guys? Like, it's just such a different vibe that by the time like people get revved up to fucking see you guys play, like we go on stage. You know what I mean? And they were amazing every night, but I get what he means. You know what I mean? Like when we did I think a 7-week tour with him, it was just us and him. And it's like, we opened for that band every night, and it almost revved the crowd up a little too much for that kind of vibe that they had. You know what I mean? So, but in the same sense, I feel like it worked. It was cool. You know, you look back at those tours and you're like, how diverse, how cool, different fan bases coming together, you know, coexisting, and it's fucking rad.
Yeah, I mean, that is still one of my all-time favorite bands. And, you know, it was funny because, like, him basically broke up and didn't tour much once my wife and I started dating and became, like, married. And then I didn't get to go see the farewell tour, but I went to Villa's solo show in Detroit.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, the band sounds great, but holy shit, are they boring? I was like, you know, 99% of the time I would definitely agree that band just is very boring live. And I go, but like Villa, especially, and the guys in the band, like they never really were like energetic and moved around and shit. No. And that was always the weird thing about every band that they brought out with them since I've been seeing them is like, there's really nothing that fits with them as far as like a live show.
They've transcended genre.
Yeah. And it was a thing where I go, but I'll be damned if you still can't not just watch Villa, like stand there smoking cigarettes, not chain smoking much anymore, but
yeah,
it's still a thing. It's so captivating. And I go, and it really reminded me because in the time leading up to having seen Villa, we just went and saw Bush recently. And I had this epiphany where I was like, Villa and Gavin Rossdale are kind of probably the last like true sex symbol rock star guys, but like 2 different decades. Like, and thinking about it, I was like, I don't really know that like that person exists currently. Like, I don't know if we've just kind of lost that sex symbol side of things.
I think it's switching to, and especially, which is a rad thing, but I think what you're getting is a stronger female presence in the rock and metal community.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, a lot of the people that are kind of considered that right now are female, you know?
Yeah.
Which is rad. I mean, more females in music, especially heavy music, is awesome. You know what I mean? That's a kind of something we've been pushing for, having Marta in the band for so long. And it's really something that we like think is really important. And you know, it's awesome to see bands like fucking just right off the go, like Spirit Box is just fucking incredible. You know what I mean? And bands like Dying Wish and bands like Capra and bands like that. Like it's really cool to see like a lot of like fucking awesome female headed heavy music right now. You know what I mean? And I think that maybe that's the time for like the sex symbol thing from all people.
Yeah. I
No,
just think
get it though. There isn't that like strapping, handsome man in like the rock kind of like metal sort of crossover world right now. You know what I mean?
I mean, I guess like if I had to maybe, I don't want to say pick someone. I feel like potentially it would be like maybe Ronnie might be the
Ronnie's up
one.
there. Yeah,
I think. But I think again, I think I think he's kind of reaching that, and maybe it's just because maybe that's what it is because like, and maybe I'm just figuring this out now, but it's like when you think of Bush, because you always think of Gavin because he was always predominantly featured in like everything as the guitar player and the singer and whatever, and he looked good. Same with Ville. It's like you have a band named Him, and he for the first like 2-3 records, he was on the fucking cover of them. Yeah. So it's hard not to associate, oh, Him must be literally him.
Yeah.
So I think maybe there's a little bit of that where it's like people like the singular entity being the whole band, quote unquote.
For sure.
It's interesting to kind of start thinking about things like that as you get older. Where you're like, all right, like why does this work? And like what music? Yeah. I mean, Gavin Ross still got it. I think the craziest thing when watching that show was he barely like I've seen him a couple of times before, and you know he's just kind of stuck at his microphone playing guitar.
Yeah.
And this time, like the band probably threw some backing tracks, or at least the newer material, which they relied most. It was like half new and half basically Razor Blade Suitcase. Yeah. And he's like a frontman, like 75% of the show, like no guitar, running around, literally at one point running through the entirety of the arena. And it's a thing where I was just like, it's weird to be 30 some odd years into a career and have me completely look at you differently as to what you are.
Didn't he do like some they did like some solo stuff for a while, right?
I think so. Yeah. I was going to ask, it's funny we ended up talking about him anyway. How, you know, because that was something when, you know, speaking to me getting back into love of music and finding my fandom, it was the first Ville, like the announcement of the album and the first single and all that dropping, where I was really intrigued to see what it was, and just took me back to, you know, my senior year of high school and getting into the band with, you know, tail end of Deep Shadows, but Love Metal was the first new record I got to have that was released here in the States. And it just felt fun to be a fan again. And it's funny because I feel like Him is one of those bands where so many people I know are into the band, like a lot. Oh. And I think you're one of them. So part of my was going to ask, like, what did you think of the record when it came out?
Like Love Metal?
No, of Neon Noir, the new Ville record.
I like it just because his voice is just so like intoxicating, I guess. I miss the energy that Him kind of has. They kind of have like a different like dark energy, but I think all in all, it's a good record. I've only really like gave it like 2-3 listens, really. But I like it. It just hasn't grabbed me, I guess. But I might be one of those fans that just like Him will live on forever. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's almost like it'll take a little while to like, you know, like I love Soundgarden, but I'm not going to go listen to a Chris Cornell record. You know what I mean? Although it's really good, I'm just not going to go listen to his record. I'll listen to Soundgarden.
Yeah, it was interesting to hear the new songs put against old Him classics. And to me, one of the biggest surprises was when they did When Love and Death Embrace, because pretty much other than It's All Tears, sometimes you would get like nothing is ever played off of that record. And that's one of my favorite songs, even though it's so stupidly just simple and to the point, like almost like a Doom Sludge kind of song where it's just the same riff over and over again.
Yeah.
But just a fucking great band. I'm glad
that we got to do one of those tours with them, and they actually toured like Deep Shadow is like my kind of favorite record, but Venus Doom is what was out when we toured with them, and I love that record. It's such a great record, doomy and heavy kind of. It's fucking awesome.
I feel like because it's interesting. Like a lot of people, I'll say at least stateside, got into the band on Dark Light, and can't help it with BAM and all that kind of stuff. I totally understand why it popped off here, but to me, it was interesting because I feel like for everyone that was like, "Oh, Dark Light and love metal," Venus Doom came out, and everyone was just like, "What the fuck is this?" And I'm like, "This is actually the perfect marriage of what came from like Greatest Love Songs, Volume 666, like them being more of like a down-tuned, just doom sludgy kind of band, and long songs." With the pop perfection of Razor Blade Romance, some Deep Shadows kind of vibes, and just kind of the perfect amalgamation of what they've been.
For sure.
And a lot of people just were like, I don't think I like this band.
They're all hating. It's kind of fun.
What a great band, though. So kind of wanted to talk a little bit about Salt Wound and you getting into managing, because I feel like it's always interesting when people decide to not only pursue their own career again, like, because for a while you guys weren't active, you were on a hiatus and then came back, and we have talked about through the last 2 times you've been on the show kind of rediscovering, as I've been talking about quite a bit lately, the why. Like, why do I want to do this? You found your why again of wanting to be bleeding through and performing again. But it always makes me interested to find the why of pursuing an ancillary avenue within the industry when you're still busy creating and doing so many other things.
Yeah. Like, I think when I first was into management, like the late, I guess it was like 2009 to 2012, had a pretty good roster. I was getting pretty good at it, but I just feel like at the time I wasn't right. And like mentally, I still was like I was a little bit jaded from the music industry then with Bleeding Through. Just because I just was jaded because of like the way that the handling of Bleeding Through and everything was going on at the time. Weird transition time. That time for heavy music was definitely on a down trajectory. And I think that I just wasn't in the right headspace to really like battle for bands, go out there and do for bands, because I was just had the wrong sort of like mentality. Now I feel like I can offer something a little bit more. I feel like the industry's kind of morphed into a better working environment. It's not so fucking slime bally. It's everybody that's at top levels of like this industry a lot of them, the metal world came from where I came from, the hardcore scene. You know what I mean? Like, and they've worked up through starting their own labels or working with labels, and we've all kind of come up together. So I'm like the same kind of age demographic as everybody there. We have like similar backgrounds, so it makes it easy to understand each other, what we're kind of like realistic things. And for me, it was more like just being inspired by Saltwood. Like I didn't think about getting into management at all. We played a show with we put them on one of our shows in Sacramento, a couple shows in Northern California, and they just fucking crushed. And I'm like, who the fuck is this band, right? Like, so talking to the guys, like, they're fucking awesome, like very motivated. And I'm like, I could help this band. And like the thing that I feel like I can help is a lot of like a mentorship. You know what I mean? I've been through every fucking bullshit thing in this industry to try to like be like where we're at right now. And if I could be a good mentor and help navigate these bands to not have to go through those things and be a little bit easier of a time and really be fighting in their corner for them, then that's what I want to do. And I feel like I'm at the right spot, like mentally and in my life to do that. I want to help the next generation of bands. Like Bleeding Through is Bleeding Through. Before Bleeding Through was still trying to punch with every other fucking band. And so I was a little bit too competitive, I guess, to like really be a manager, because it was like competitive with my own bands almost, which was just stupid to think. But it's the truth, you know what I mean? And now it's like, we are what we are, and I want to help like usher in like the new generation of like heavy music, you know what I mean? And if I could be part of and help these bands that I really like believe in, that I think are just fucking great bands, that's why I want to do this. And so far it's been awesome. I have 2 bands right now, Salt Wound and Last of Our Kind. They're both fucking awesome bands. They're both ground level, and we're really just going to try to build smart, build a really good, loyal team, not try to just get on the biggest label that we possibly can and shoot for the stars at first, because I feel like a lot of bands, when they do that and they don't actually have to go through some of the rigors of this life, it hurts them in the long run. So, we're going to build We're going to grind together and we're going to make some fucking noise. And it's just exciting. I can't wait. I feel the excitement like it is Bleeding Through, working with these other bands. Like that's the difference now, is I really see it as like something that like I can get behind, and I'm going to be so happy for these bands and when it starts popping off.
I don't think I've ever asked you this. Are you someone that just loves building something from the ground up, whatever it is? Doesn't have to be music, just literally be anything. Are you someone that likes the work and the process and figuring things out?
I love work. Anybody that kind of knows me will say that I'm a little bit psychotic when it comes to work. I work long hours at the gym. I get burnt out, but one of the things that gets me up and every day is really just going out and trying to like conquer something, trying to take that step forward, trying to put something that I believe in into the world and see like how it works. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I love building things. I love the challenge. I love seeing how hard I can push myself, what kind of knowledge that I could like put inside of my brain still. I love learning new things and just challenges. And it's not like I'm a serial, a serial business starter or whatever, venture starter. I'm very cautious with what I do, but like when I do get into it, I'm a workhorse for sure.
As I say, it just seems like you seem like someone that likes to, I don't know if figuring things out is necessarily like I can make it that simple of a statement, but yeah, as I say, like you seem like someone that's like when you get into something, you're all in. I got to figure out all the nuts and bolts. I got to figure out like why this thing works, how it works. And then the excitement and the passion that you get from learning all those things probably becomes very contagious, because you probably are so immersed in it that all you want to do is tell people about this thing because you like that's how I feel like you are. Yeah.
And I'm not trying to be like annoying with stuff, but you know what I mean. Like, I just think 40, like saying like I'm almost 43 years old, man. Like my time and the way that I see it is my time is still here, but trying to become the biggest band in the world or the biggest gym in the world is something that's not really in my aspirations. Like I'm very comfortable where I'm at. I'm very prideful of like everything that like I've built and all the people that have been around me helping me and what we built together. But now it's just time to put that effort into like other people and other things that you believe in and kind of back other people and seeing how far we could push these like other people in their careers and helping them. And that's where I kind of see like fitness has always been about helping people first and foremost, not about opening 19 gyms and trying to become fucking rich. Like that'd be great, but really it's about helping people. I like serving. I like to serve people. Like that's what I like to do. That's how I see my band. My band is nothing but a service for people. Like literally, like, that's just how I kind of see it.
I think something that I kind of take away from it is something I've as I get older, I kind of, and I think I've even kind of, it's changed in the podcast a little bit too, where I feel like sometimes like that episode I did with Andrew, where we had been talking off record, like texting and phone conversations about me starting to lose weight and wanting to get into that and kind of being healthier. And so he was like, dude, let's fucking do a podcast and we'll talk about that. Cause obviously it's a huge part of my life and it's my other career other than music. And it's funny because for someone that's like, I hate doing press, but I'll always do your show. It was funny to have him be like, I want to do the show. Let's talk about these things.
Yeah.
But the thing I've noticed when talking more about therapy, mental health, talking now about, my beginning phases of weight loss and all that kind of stuff. Like I had a comment on that Andrew chat yesterday that was like, was so motivating to hear this. It's always positive to hear you guys talk. And you know what? I'm interested to hear how your journey goes, listening to the podcast and stuff like that. And it's almost created this ancillary accountability for me that people are like, I'm vocalizing it. And one of the things I am going to prose at the end, actually, I'll just say it now. So I know that the show that you guys are doing in Detroit is in like mid-August. Yeah. So we got about, what's today's date? Today's the 21st. So literally about 2 months away.
3 months.
So my goal is going to be like 175 by the time I go to that show, which is going to be about, so that'll be about, I'll call it 30 pounds even.
All right, cool.
So about 10 pounds a month ish, but that's going to be my goal. And then people can hold me accountable.
Here we go.
So either I'm going to show up and I'll be there, or I'm going to be like, people are like, "Oh, you fat fuck, you didn't do it," and I'll be like, "I know."
No, I feel like if you just said it right now, you're willing it to existence, and you'll get on it, man. You'll do it.
Yeah. But it's definitely one of those
shows. It's gonna be cool.
Yeah. I mean, I've never seen you guys play. You guys always played. And I think that's such an interesting thing too, because like sometimes I've talked about even on the show and to people in person where they're like, "Oh, have you ever seen such and such band?" I go, "Nah, I never saw them."
Yeah.
And it's interesting to think about a day and time where I don't think some people understand, like, the internet cost a shitload of money back in the day. Not everyone had it. Internet cafes were how I went and got my like weekly allotment of internet time.
Yeah.
And that on the flip side of that, it's, you know, there are points in our lives like where it's like as soon as you get out of high school and like you're kind of figuring out your life, that it's like you're not usually flush with cash to just be able to go spend your money doing whatever. And between that and not having the internet, it's like there were times that you guys toured and almost toured so much, but it's like I just never knew when the fuck you were coming. It's like that joke of like, "Hey, when are you guys coming to Grand Rapids?" "Motherfucker, we were there a week and a half ago. Where were you?" "Sorry, didn't know."
Yeah.
That's a real thing back then versus now, where it's like
all the shows that I did because we were always playing shows or
Yeah.
festivals, or that's how I saw everybody. You know what I mean? Like, so I get it, man. Now I find myself like mindfully looking for things that are coming up, even though like we're flush with social media updates and this and that. It's so much now where you almost don't see it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's funny because I'll ask like friends of mine, like, "Hey, when are you coming to Southern California playing?" They're like, "Oh, dude, just look on our Instagram." And I'm like, "Or you haven't seen it on Instagram?" I'm like, do you see my shit on Instagram? Probably not. Like, come on. And like, as much as I, run my Instagram pages for my businesses, it's not like I sit on Instagram all day. I'm literally on there to post and gone, like, off to real life to work. You know what I mean? And it's like, so I don't like scope around to like, okay, oh, I just saw that like this band's playing here, so I'll go see that. And usually like when I do, I'm like pleasantly surprised, like, oh, they're playing, you know what? But it has to kind of smack me in the face. You know what I mean? I have to actively look. So I get it now. And there's so much going on, so many shows that everything's just kind of lost in the mix.
Well, I think that like even knowing myself and exactly like you were just saying of like having to seek what it's coming out.
Yeah. In
our DM, I wrote reminder to myself because I know we'll message each other and then I'll see and be like, "Fuck, I need to buy tickets." So it was like a thing where I was like, I will do that where I will plant little seeds for myself, knowing that I'll find them later and be like, "Oh fuck, I didn't do that thing. I need to do that."
Yeah.
And I think that even is something I've noticed getting older is I just understand that like I will forget something because like we were just talking about, I do a million things all at once, and it's so easy for something just to slip by the wayside because I will forget about it for 2 fucking seconds thinking about something else, and then it's gone.
Yeah. Well, and like even like these shows that we're playing, like we're booking a lot of shows like for the next like year, just like limited engagement areas, kind of doing the 20-year anniversary thing. I find myself like once the show is booked, I am texting people that I know in the area, be like, "Here's the flyer. No excuses. I fucking told you. None of this. Oh, I didn't even fucking know." Like, But I'm finding myself do that because a lot of friends I haven't seen in like forever. I mean, we haven't played like the Detroit, like in the Michigan area. And fuck.
I think like 10 years, I think at least.
I honestly don't even remember. Like, well, no, we played in 2013. We played Detroit. So that was 10 years ago. Okay. It'll be fucking 10 years. And, I just want to make sure that like these people that I want to see in the area that I know won't see, that they know. You know what I mean?
I think there's become a lot more of understanding that in my life. Like when Botch announced their 2 shows initially that they were playing in Seattle, I was like, I never got to see fucking Botch. I'm going.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, "You don't think they're going to do any more shows?" I go, I don't know. I'd rather go and find out they are and then be like, whatever, I already bought these tickets, made the trip. It's whatever versus hoping and praying that something comes closer and it never does.
Yeah.
And I go, there are only a small handful of bands that are left that I just like haven't seen that I always wanted to. Botch was one of them. Ironically, they just announced Cave-In and Converge playing their like East Coast dates, and I've never seen Converge nor Cave-In, and I'm like,
Oh shit.
I'm like, fuck, do I go all the way to New Jersey to go fucking see Botch and Cave-In and all them just so I can go? And it's on my wife's birthday. So I was like, hey, do you want to go do an East Coast trip and also go to this show that you probably give no fucks about?
I mean,
it might be. I mean, that's how we ended up going. I mean, she surprised me with Valentine's Day tickets to go end up seeing 18 Visions, like for the first time, like when they were kind of doing their thing. But it's I think more oftentimes than not now, like my wife and I literally just booked a trip to Atlanta in a couple of weeks. It's like our go-to spot. We love going, but like we will be more apt to just do that because we're like, fuck it. Like we don't have kids. We don't want kids. This is our one life to live. Like why not make and have the experiences to do whatever? Like, you know, we did Vegas, went to Zion National Park, went to Salt Lake City and did a bunch of hiking and shit. And it's like, will I ever go back to Zion? Probably not ever. But like for the one time, I have the memories, and that's what I think. Like
the one thing about touring so much, the one thing that is experience, the travel, and I tell people all the time: travel as much as you can, see as much as you can. That's life. That is, you've lived life once you get outside your box and fucking just go see things, experience other things. Like no matter where it is, you know what I mean? Like no matter what.
I think it's ultimately what. As I get older, it's the things that I find make me have more common interests, or not common interests, commonalities between worldviews and just the way I think about life. Because when you start seeing other facets of it beyond your local area, it can't help but change you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I think it's one of the biggest things I'm insanely jealous of, like anyone who has toured at any kind of capacity to where you start getting to go like international and so forth. It's like, man, you fucking have kind of like just even getting to experience it, even if it's nothing more than I'm at the venue, like at least you're still somewhere entirely different. And like this thing you started and your passion took you there.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, that's the one thing I could look back and say, hey, like we've gotten to go all over the world and play this music for people. And that's just crazy. And just being able to like be there amongst those people from like a different place. It's just, that was the biggest dream come true about it. And that's still a dream come true because it's like, you know, last month we went and played Colombia for the first time. And it was just like, we're in fucking Colombia. Like, holy fucking shit. Like, you know, still getting to do that is the one thing that is truly just like a blessing to do with this band.
I think that's the one thing, as I kind of been slowly wrapping up, that I feel like is a huge thing. Like Midsommar really fucked me up in a different way than I think most people would admit, where, you know, the idea of, you know, they're elderly ending it at, I think 65 was the age, and knowing that you kind of go out at the peak still of your faculties and stuff like that, and that you're lauded and celebrated for the long life you lived. That to me, I feel like that's something I try to take away a lot more of, is that as I get older, I kind of want to just do rad shit, and I want to like have like go out. Like I don't know. I just don't want to live a life of regrets. And I feel like too often that like our parents and their generations before, just due to lack of resources and so forth, and understanding of the world beyond their local area, that it's like, I feel like we are so blessed to be able to live in this time and age where we can pick up, and, you know, flights and traveling and information is at our fingertips. Well, dude, that it's just, that I feel like that's why so many people, when they retired, died so quickly and still do, because it's like you just don't have essentially you don't have a purpose. Yeah, I agree. I mean, the world is small, and it's like, so go see it, man. It's smaller than you think. Yeah. Especially where you're at. It's like you can get on a plane and in 5.5 hours be in fucking Ireland. So for the same price that you could probably fly to California. We were looking at going to it's close, because the few trips out to like out west, it's quite a bit of money, but for a little bit less, like we were looking at going to Iceland, and it was cheaper to go to Iceland than it was to go to California when we went. Go to fucking Iceland. I know. You know what I mean? You and the same distance time and make a road trip and go to California. You can't get in a car and drive to Iceland. Nope. You know what I mean? Nope. Not yet anyway. Not yet. We were supposed to have flying cars by now. Like, what the fuck? Hey, aren't you guys supposed to have like the fucking wind tunnel or tube tunnel thingies that are supposed to transport people super quick? Exactly. Is that still being built, or was that just a thing that never even got off the ground?
we were supposed to have bullet trains and bullet tubes and all that. Dude, this California is a fucking dumpster fire. We're not building shit. We're still trying to fix our fucking freeways. And if the freeways
Same
fire,
here.
we build a fucking super rail. Like, come on. It's stupid.
I don't know. But then I go to places like Chicago and I'm like, they got it figured out. You just have a bunch of fucking trains. They still work.
I know, man. They were smart. Put it above ground.
Yeah. There you go. Last question for you. What like, you know, because we're at kind of the midway point of the year, what have you been excited about or proud of that has happened in the first half of this year? And what are you looking forward to the last half of the year?
Well, in regards to Bleeding Through, it's kind of a weird thing. Like, all the years of this band, we have never, at least the members that have been in for as long, like for the long time, the vibe that we get at our shows and the reaction and the overall energy and love and just everything has been so overwhelming. It's like we're an old new band, kind of. Like, the excitement is almost like of a new band, right? And I just feel like the vibe forth is just so true and so like what we've always wanted to be. And now that it's here, and I think it's really genuine. So I'm really proud of like how that we've kind of been going about doing this band. I think we're doing it extremely the right way, and we're doing it the most that we possibly can as far as like time goes. So I'm proud that we're all taking time out of our lives to do this band still, because we all love it. And that's what really is very prideful as well. And I'm really just kind of like looking to continue that, like, as much as like, you know, as much as like this could be, I don't think that Bleeding Through is going to end anytime soon. I feel like it just is kind of building again, and it just feels really fucking awesome. And we have like just so much love for the people that are coming to our shows. And that's like what I'm really prideful of that we're just doing it at the level that we're doing it at right now. Because, you know, there was like the thoughts of like, because I see a lot of bands get back together and play, and I'm just like, this is garbage. Like, it's garbage. Like, they're fat. They don't move anymore. They're winded. Like, and I'm just like, fuck that. And I'm like, I would just use that as the motivating factor. And I think the rest of us kind of answered the call of that as well, of being like a real fucking band. So you haven't seen us before and you've listened to us forever. I fucking guarantee you that we will be a better band on that stage than any time before where you could have seen us. Guarantee fucking team. And that's what I'm proud of. That, and I'll say it, no ego. We're a fucking dope band. Like, that's the reason why we're fucking doing this. Like, and when we go up there, we put everything into it, and we still do. And I feel like every show we try to put more and more and more of ourselves into it. So that's something I'm really like prideful of. And I'm just looking forward to still going out there and reconnecting with a lot of like people we haven't seen in a long time, a lot of cities, a lot of places that we have a lot of history, going to Michigan and doing those shows, going to Chicago the night before, even places like Iowa City where people are like, why are you going to Iowa City? Because Iowa City was one of those places that was a stronghold for us and very special for us. You know what I mean? It was small but intimate and special. So that's what we're going to do, and that's like what I'm stoked to do moving forward.
Awesome. Where can everyone find you, or anything you would like to plug online?
Just go to Rise Above Fitness for Instagram for my gym, anything clothing, apparel, and my personal one at Brandan Schieppati. At Bleeding Through. Just go to all those and kind of just see like what we're doing. Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Awesome.
And I'm gonna go hit the gym and start on my promise. Then I'm gonna drop the weight by the time I see you in a couple months.
All right, man. Later, bud.
See ya. So that was my conversation with Brandan Schieppati. Want to thank him again for taking the time. Always have fun talking with him. It's kind of funny. The first time I had him on, I was kind of surprised at his, I guess I shouldn't be, but I was surprised at how just straightforward he was with things. Like when I asked questions, he didn't kind of sugarcoat it. He just kind of got right to the point. And obviously the second time having him on, I think we kind of got more of a rapport personally. And so it's been kind of fun to just kind of bullshit with him, you know, in the DMs and so forth, and just kind of grow, I guess, a friendship in this day and age where it exists between two people who have never technically met. It's funny to think that that's the world we live in now. There are even people coming up soon that I'm excited to see, because I haven't literally met them in person, even though we've done a podcast where we've digitally hung out for like an hour or so. I guess it's, talking about, like I said in the intro, sort of adapting to the times, and how we meet people now, especially, the running joke, as you get older, like you just don't make new friends. It's funny. I don't know. Thinking about that a lot lately. Just, how quickly we become friends. I was talking with a friend of mine that I met at the bar, who's from the East Coast. And that was the impetus of our friendship. Was he saw my Wawa tattoo. We started talking all things East Coast. And he over time, the other day actually was just saying, like, he was like, oh, I haven't seen you and your wife in a while. Like, need to hang out soon. And then when I saw him like yesterday, I was like, it's funny. I guess you actually like me, because you were saying like, oh, I don't usually follow people on Instagram. I don't usually text people. I don't usually hang out with people. I don't make plans. And then, so it's just kind of amusing to think that like at almost 40, I'm still able to make new friends. And, I don't know, maybe it's not as, hard as I think it is. I guess it's what we put into it, or are willing to put into it, and showcase of ourselves to other people. All that said, it's been so interesting. Like I said in the intro too, talking about the Wiz Khalifa Snoop Dogg show and just how it kind of correlated to this conversation. The other thing that's been really interesting too is, and that I'm excited about, is, since starting this new job, it's been a bit of a struggle to find time to do the podcast, kind of, because I'm trying to for the last 6-7 months, I've been so like focused on working, having no personal life, that I feel like it's gone the other way now, where it's like I have time to have a personal life, and I'm making up for lost time with friends, with my wife, with family, and all that kind of stuff. But I'm almost kind of like, the podcast is almost taking a back seat, because I don't know, I just have more time to do stuff. But I've been really enjoying going to shows a lot more lately. Like tonight, I'm going to see Death Grips. I've never seen them. I've always wanted to. You can feel how you want to about them. You'll probably, if you follow me on socials, you will see me posting stuff from that show, because it's also something I realized I probably need to be more active on, is kind of showcasing the music side of things beyond just the podcast, but like going to shows and being a fan of music and live music and so forth, and kind of curating interesting experiences maybe that I get to have with friends and doing shit, as vain as that may sound. But it's been interesting, because like my wife and I are planning like my birthday weekend essentially. And for like 5 or 6 days, we're essentially going to a show every single day. Like, we're a friend that I've made from doing this show is coming through. And it's one where I'm super excited to like see all these people that I haven't seen in some instances for like a year or more. But I'm also like, I'm getting old, where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to be so tired and run down that whole week, because like I just have nothing. I'm working, and then I'll go to a show. I'm working, then I'm going to a show. And it's all worth it in the end. My wife and I don't choose to have kids. We live kind of, I guess, an unconventional life. But it's one that brings happiness to us. It's one that provides us experiences and memories and all these kind of things. And, I wouldn't change it. Again, kind of going back to the, adapting without compromising yourself. I think I'm adapting to my new life that I have currently without compromising anything, hopefully. But it's been a lot of fun, and I got a lot of fun conversations coming up. I really enjoyed this one with Brandan. I'm really looking forward to catching Bleeding Through in a few months. I'm looking at a calendar, blanking on the day of the show, but really looking forward to going. Bleeding Through is one of the bands I've wanted to see. Even talking about going to that Botch reunion and so forth, and seeing some of these bands. Like, I want to see bands now that I haven't gotten to see. If I can do it, I will make it happen, because time is short, and you may never get the opportunities to see these bands. And I know for the most part, I doubt Bleeding Through is going to come back to the Midwest anytime soon. So this is probably my one opportunity before either they decide to not tour anymore, or at least not do anything that's not out west solely. All that said, going to start wrapping up this episode. If you would like to keep up with Brandan Schieppati, you can find him on Instagram at Brandan Schieppati, and Twitter is bschieppati. If you'd like to keep up with Bleeding Through, you can find them on Instagram at Bleeding Through, Twitter at Bleeding Through, and Facebook, you guessed it, at Bleeding Through, or head over to bleedingthroughofficial.com and keep up with everything going on with the band, buy merch, check out their tour dates, all that kind of stuff. once again, want to thank Brandan for taking the time. As always, such a rad dude. Very much looking forward to hopefully linking up in person and just, getting to hang with a rad dude in person. Plus, I also this is a weird thing, and it'll kind of segue right into my next episode's guest. But also really love being this age now and being like, hey, my wife and I are coming, and knowing that typically it sounds like Brandan and his wife always do these shows together and so forth. So it's always fun when couples kind of do something, because then you can kind of be like, here's my wife, oh, here's my wife, and then everyone kind of gets to chat, talk, whatever. I don't know. It's a very weird thing, but it is something as I've gotten older and I meet a lot of the people that have been on the show, and then subsequently if their wives or girlfriends come out, it's just kind of nice to have that extra layer of life to discuss, I guess. All that said, thank you for taking the time to listen to this episode. There are 400 plus episodes in the back catalog, so if this is your first episode, please go back, check out the other episodes. I guess if you're only coming because of Brandan, go check out the other 2 episodes that we've already done. I've also done one with Wombi way back in the day, so a lot of bleeding through stuff if you're interested in checking that out. Also, if you want to support our sponsors, head on over to rockabilia.com, use our code Brutally at checkout, take 10% off your total purchase order. I want to thank all the guys and gals over there for their continued support. And Starving Artist Brewery, got a flat of beer from them a few weeks ago, still working my way through it, still great beer, still can't wait to hopefully do a collaboration with them and get a podcast beer out soon-ish. All that said, enjoy the rest of your week. And I will be back with Scott Lee, founder of the New England and Metal Hardcore Festival. The man has done so many things in the metal and hardcore community over the last 20-something years. Really great conversation, lots of great stories. Can't wait for you to hear that one, and I'll talk to you then.